rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Guys, all right, it is yesterday's testimony from Devon Archer, from what we've been able to take away from it, from some of the written exposés or written columns on it, is absolutely damning. It proves that the Biden administration, or Joe Biden himself, is the most corrupt president ever in American history, the most corrupt vice president in American history, and probably the most corrupt senator in American history. Some other things that we learned is just in the last day or two, as if we didn't know, what a horrible grandfather he is. We have audio of that we'll play for you shortly, Gabe and I. And also, there's this thing that came out just the other day. Project Veritas has revealed a tape recording of Ashley Biden requesting her material or her things back from a house that she had rented, I believe, in Palm Beach at one point in time. And that included her diary, the infamous diary. So we'll get into that and more on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a sec. All right, welcome back to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Listen, Devon Archer has totally vindicated Donald Trump with his testimony. He has totally vindicated Donald Trump. And listen, this isn't an ad for Donald Trump. This is just the truth. He totally vindicated this guy. If what we're hearing and what is coming out is true, and I believe that it is, there's no doubt in my mind. Listen, for those of us that voted for Donald Trump in 2020, we knew the Russia collusion thing was a hoax. We knew the Ukraine stuff was a hoax, but now it is coming full circle to the point where Donald Trump is out there saying, listen, I'm only going to support you or your campaign if you demand impeachment for Joe Biden. Now, listen, I think I want impeachment. I will tell you this straight up. I want impeachment. However, as time moves forward and you get closer to the election cycle, you're going to get a bunch of weak-kneed Republicans that are not going to want impeachment. And beyond that, it could politically backfire. I hate this about Washington, D.C. I don't think that they started the impeachment inquiry. Actually, they haven't even started it yet, but I think they should have started it quite some time ago. But obviously, the DOJ and the FBI have been slow walking and doing everything they could to resist getting information to the House Oversight Committee and to the Judiciary Committee and to the Weaponization, I believe is what it's called, committee, so that Joe Biden couldn't be impeached and a lot of people wouldn't go to jail. But again, Devon Archer, in my opinion, has vindicated Donald Trump, and we'll go over some of this column from the New York Post that is written by Stephen Nelson. Absolutely damning material in that. There's other news items that I want to get to for you today. Also, I actually want to start with this video because Joe Biden was questioned by Peter Doocy. You would think he would learn to respond better, but he hasn't as of yet. But he was questioned by Peter Doocy about his seventh grandchild. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't care that much about this story at first in the large scheme of things. And I even heard other conservatives, just kind of hitting it hard. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's disgusting and I think it's nasty at a personal level. Then it really did start to hit me. I'm like, kudos to those other conservatives. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. But kudos to those ones that were out there and they continue to make this an issue because it is an issue. When you think about it, Joe Biden, if he is this disgusting and despicable of a human being when it comes to his own grandkid, think about that. If he doesn't care about his own grandkid, how could he care about you? And it's so different, right? With a grandkid, you hear grandparents talk about this all the time. We don't have to do the work that we did as parents. When it comes to the grandkids, we can just have fun and we can pour into them, because we don't have to be the ones to discipline them. But Joe Biden and Jill Biden, too, just despicable human beings. When I say Joe Biden, I should just automatically assume that I'm connecting Jill Biden because I think she's just as bad to keep this charade going. But this guy is, again, a despicable human being. And again, we'll get to that video in just a sec. I do want to bring you Other headlines, a new report shows high school boys are leaning conservative. This is good news. I know some of you have already heard about this, but I'll just opine on it real quickly. And this from The Hill. A popular narrative suggests young people are liberal and getting more liberal. The social media buzzed when a chart surfaced in spring that seemed to suggest 12th grade boys had become overwhelmingly conservative. 12th grade boys are nearly twice as likely to identify as conservative versus liberal, according to a respected federal survey of American youth. Now, many people attribute this to manly men that they might be watching on social media, but I also think it's in part to just their nature, the male nature. The male nature wants to protect, wants to fight back. And I start to think that if you're not totally wussified, if you're not totally brainwashed by the left, there's just this natural inclination of men to initially say, whoa, 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 I don't like this, and to rise up. And that is a good thing. So I'm really happy to hear about that. I hope that it will increasingly grow and that there will be more men that'll stand up, not just for conservative politics, but for the faith. That is the Christian faith and our Judeo-Christian principles. New polling shows that Trump's firm grasp of the GOP in nearly every demographic. Now, I get some nasty messages from people that, oh, you're a DeSantis shield. And no, you freaking idiot. I'm not a DeSantis shield. I'll tell you straight up, I love Trump and I love DeSantis. I would not be disappointed if either one of them became president. And I'm sorry, I don't buy the notion only Trump. Why? Because I'm a Christian, you freaking moron. So I don't buy the notion that only Trump can do it. I believe he is only of a few candidates that would be willing to take on the deep state. Obviously, he has an emotional connection, which makes it more visceral, which makes it more palpable, which helps us to understand that he's going to go in there and fight the deep state. But I also sit back as a person with common sense, and I say, okay, sometimes you can get so blinded by emotion that you don't look at the big picture, and maybe you don't attack everywhere. And that's why I'm willing to listen to every plan. I've come to the conclusion that unless someone knocks him off of the throne, Trump is going to be the nominee. But I want people to inject the best ideas into his campaign so that he'll take on those ideas. And I'm sorry, DeSantis is a crappy campaigner, but his ideas are excellent. And whenever I get the hate from Trumpsters like that, I know they have not gone onto his website and educated themselves. So screw you if you're one of the ones that are sending me messages that saying I'm a DeSantis shield. No, I want the best of the best ideas to rise to the top, because in the end, I believe we win with the best ideas. We can't have Trump go in again and do a gang of executive orders and he gets out, and then Biden or another Democrat can just come in and wipe everything away. All right. So if you want to throw shade at me, oh, well, screw you. I'm sorry. That's the way I roll. I don't get all emotional. I want policy. I want policy. I want policy for you. I want policy for me. I want legislation that'll stick at long after Trump is gone. And for you, for those of you that are sending me shade honestly, you don't understand the fight. You don't understand how bad it is. The deep state is is huge, but no, it is wrong to say, honestly, when you say only Trump, you minimize Christ. It's only Christ. It's only God. It isn't only Trump, or you idolize a man. So you should repent. Freaking idiots. Don't send me. I'm sorry. I get frustrated with this stuff because you're a threat. You're a threat to freedom. For those of you that are sending me shade, I know that was highly personal for some of you. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to let it out. I'm fighting for your freedom too, even if you're so emotional, you can't see it. I want the best of the best ideas. And I'm sorry, when Ron DeSantis has great ideas, I'm going to talk about them. When Vivek has great ideas, I'm going to talk about them. When Larry Elder has great ideas, I'm going to talk about them. If their ideas align with Trump, so be it. Good. If Trump is the one to carry out those ideas, good. But I want to make sure that all of those ideas are talked about and vetted and ultimately go on to the platform, whether it's a Donald Trump that wins. And at this point, it looks like it will be, or DeSantis, because we're still a long ways off and we just don't know what will happen. All right. But if I'm looking at the polls today with only activists, being involved, or the base being involved, then Donald Trump is doing well because he carries 37% of the base from the start. He's got a 37% head start on everybody in the field. So new polling shows that Trump's firm grasp of the GOP is in nearly every demographic, according to Town Hall. So a polling from the New York Times and Siena College, which I don't believe. I'm sorry. I don't trust the New York Times, but I know that people are going to cite it because that's what's out. So I'm just giving you the information, all right? I don't trust any of the polls right now. Even our polls, Rasmussen, Trafalgar, which have been proven to be the best polls in the past, absolutely sucked in 2022. All right, so I'm sorry. I'm not giving a lot of these polls any credit until they come correct in 2024, Lord willing. But I'll share the information with you. So according to the New York Times and Siena College, shows a now familiar picture of the state of the Republican presidential primary field. Trump with a dominant lead, DeSantis a distant second, and all other candidates somewhere in the rear with 3% or less. This, according to Time Siena poll, the numbers shook out to 54% for Trump, 17% for DeSantis, and 3% for Haley, Scott, and Pence. What's fascinating about this is, to me, is Vivek Ramaswamy, that a lot of people were like, oh, this guy is going to hop in a second. He seems to be stagnant or falling in some polls. You had at least one poll where Senator Tim Scott appears to be rising. I don't want Senator Tim Scott to be the nominee. I think he is too soft for the times, quite frankly. I think he is what, listen, I just think he's too soft. I think he's the wrong man for the times. And I think Senator Tim Scott would play and fall for the race card every single time where we would lose ground from the left. That's why I'm like, dude, if you want a solid black conservative on the stage debating and offering some ideas, even if he doesn't stand a chance of winning, put Larry Elder on the stage, elderforpresident.com. I'm under no illusion that he'll win, but his ideas and his solutions are far better, I'm sorry, than Senator Tim Scott. People want to feel good about Senator Tim Scott, but when he decided to side with Kamala Harris, and the left to try to bash the Florida Department of Education's curriculum on slavery that is absolutely thorough and phenomenal and the best in the country, he showed me that he was willing to play the race card and use the race game in order to gain an advantage over his own Republican homies, if you will. And I know they're not friends per se, but you know what I'm saying. So Kurt Schlichter and others have written great columns on this. Tim Scott, he's disqualified for the presidency as far as I'm concerned. If you want to go backwards, you would go with Tim Scott. All right. There's people that are arguing that way with DeSantis. And I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you the truth. That's just a lie. And you're uninformed, ill-informed, or just straight up an emotional little girl if you're going to sit here and lie to people and say Ron DeSantis is a rhino. I don't take you seriously. I don't. Because I could look at the website and I could look at what he's done in the state of Florida, where he's been the most conservative governor that I've ever seen. As long as I've been involved in politics, and many have said in their lifetimes that we've ever seen. So to call him a rhino is to actually indict yourself on the moron that you are. I'm sorry. I've been getting some messages where I'm just like, all right, fools, you freaking commies. We got commies in the conservative movement. You can't think for yourself in the conservative movement, apparently. So screw you. You're not a true conservative. So I'll just say that. I'm tired of getting the messages, and I'm not going to hold back anymore. I can't stand the radical left that tries to censor me, and I can't stand commies in the conservative movement that'll pretend to be conservatives that are trying to censor me. So screw you. All right, now, I just got a message last night from a so-called Christian. And I'm like, man, you freaking, anyway, that's the way it goes. Here's really good news. Georgia Powers Plant, Vogtle 3. I might be mispronouncing that. VOGTLE. 3 nuclear reactor is the first to come online in 30 years. So Georgia Power announced Monday that its plant Vogtle 3 nuclear reactor has entered commercial operation. The first in the U.S., the first nuclear reactor in the U.S. to come online in 30 years. Operators said that it'll it's completed its testing and is reliably supplying power to the grid. The reactor will both provide an estimated 1,000 megawatts of power to the state, enough to power 500,000 homes and businesses. That's with one nuclear reactor. Developers also said once the new units are online, the 4-reactor nuclear power plant will be the largest generator of clean energy in the nation. You want clean and reliable energy? Nuclear, instead of all this green stuff that people have been lying to you about. So just some things in the headline. New CDC director floats annual COVID vaccines. I was going to say something really mean. This is what I want to see. I want to see an amputation of the CDC. I want to see Trump's plan for that. It's one of the things that DeSantis has talked about. I want to see Trump talk about it. And it may be I need to go check his website because I'm not saying he won't do it. I want to see him talk about it. All right. This is very important. We were screwed during COVID. Some of you may want to forget and pretend like it didn't happen. I don't want to forget because it is one of the things. It is the thing that literally almost totally destroyed our country in just in a very short period of time. We've had about $4 trillion of wealth that has been taken from the middle class and the poor, mostly from the middle class, overwhelmingly, and given to our rich elites and and big corporations. You're talking about a transfer of wealth from the middle class to the upper echelon of society. And we don't talk about it. Conservatives don't talk about it. It's amazing. It's amazing. We always talk about the damage that the left is doing to the country. What about the conservatives that say silent on stuff like that? Elon Musk describes ESG. I'm going beyond, above and beyond. Describes ESG as basically communism. And he's right about that. Communism rebranded. He's right about that. Let me see if there's other worth mentioning. You have DeSantis that gave an economic plan, beginning with regaining control from China. Let me just say this before we get into the most corrupt president in American history, Senate, and worst father ever. Here's what DeSantis and all. This is why they can't beat Trump in a primary, or why it's extremely difficult. It's the way their races or their campaigns are formed. You can talk about all the hiccups that DeSantis had at the beginning of his campaign, and those are issues, because I do think that he screwed himself and not giving himself this higher percentage being in second place. And he allowed other people to come into the race, the Tim Scotts and stuff like that. But you can see they're polling low now. So all of the first things like his launch with Twitter and all that kind of stuff, no, he should have just done a traditional launch, family next to him, some beautiful background. He should have done that, because all the people that followed him on Twitter would have watched him anyway. And then he could have gone back to Twitter to do some type of forum, just like Vivek Ramaswamy has done, just like RFK Jr. has done. But what everybody is running against with Trump, and this is why it makes it virtually impossible to beat Trump in a primary unless you can figure this out. And I'm not sure how you would figure this out as a campaign. Carl, I see you waving your hands. What is this that you're trying to figure out? It's justice. It's what if people are starting. I hear other national talk show hosts starting to understand what's going on, although they don't frame it in the same way. But it's justice. People want justice for Trump. People understand that what happened in 2020, our election system, that election was fundamentally rigged, and they want justice. And so every time the Department of Justice, so to speak, throws shade at Trump, all it does is embolden his base, and it reminds people of how corrupt our system is. And they say enough is enough. And so they say, you know what? In order to stand against the tyranny of the deep state, we've got to stand with Trump. And that's what's happening. And I don't know how you defeat that. If you're DeSantis, I don't know how you run against. They're not running against Trump, not Trump alone. They're running against the idea of Trump. They're running against the deep state, the idea of a corrupt deep state. And even though DeSantis, in my opinion, has offered more plans even than Trump to dismantle the deep state, he is not the guy that was the victim of the deep state tyranny in 2020. So, but here's where I step back and look at this as I'm not emotionally involved. Sometimes I wish I were. I look at some of my buddies and colleagues. They're rah, rah, rah for Trump. And I love that because I love their passion. And they talk about policies and politics too. But I just try to look at this thing from and please don't get under the impression that I'm saying I'm better than anyone. I'm not. It's just the way that God built me, where I'm like, ooh, emotion first. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm like, what's going to help the people in 20 years, in a generation? Because it's going to take a generation to turn this country around, to get it back on track. I know that sounds daunting to some of you. I think we're experiencing some success, but just consider the left has been brainwashing our students, using our institutions to brainwash students and Americans for a very long period of time, for a couple of generations at least. And honestly, you can go back 100 years or more to the progressive movement under Woodrow Wilson. We're seeing a reincarnation of Woodrow Wilson with Joe Biden. All right. So DeSantis unveils a economic plan. I think this is a very good idea. But again, until he understands that he's running against justice, I don't see how you make waves. He's gonna have to be able to figure that out. There's no doubt that he will be a great president in my mind, but people already know that Trump will be a great president. Plus, he's got the emotional factor of, hey, they are going after Trump because the deep state is going after Trump. This is what they would do to me, And frankly, they're already doing it. I think some of the Trump supporters are late to the party because I never hear them talk about, or hardly ever hear them talk about, the J6 protesters that are already in jail. So they've already done it to other people, smaller people that don't have the name as that Trump has. So don't forget about them. I'll say that. Julie Kelly writes about them often. So please check her out at AM Greatness. All right, let me make sure there's nothing else that I want to cover here just real quick. I'm sorry, because there were so many headlines. I just thought I didn't do the typical Jackson 5. I just felt like there were really good headlines that at least needed to be talked about, even if I couldn't go in depth here. And then I want to get into this Devon Archer thing. And again, we have a couple of videos to play for you. All right, so it's more on the Devon Archer stuff. Trump steps up war with Senate GOP, impeach Biden, or face primaries. All right, now I actually think this is a better tactic because I thought I read that he was talking about that as far as the House was concerned. But I think the real pressure is, because I think the House would probably do it, but the real pressure would be on the Senate. Now, will they ultimately do it? I don't know, because again, these people, it's self-preservation. I'm sorry. In the Senate, you only have a handful of people that are the real ride or die conservatives, the constitutionalists. You can name them: Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, good Lord. And now I'm forgetting some: JD Vance, Josh Hawley, maybe Ron Johnson. I'm sure there's a couple of more or so that I'm missing, but it's not tons of them, right? I mean, it's not tons in the Senate that are going to be your ride or die conservatives, so to speak. But Trump wants to put the pressure on. Mitch McConnell is still there. It looks like Mitch McConnell needs to resign, in my opinion, based on his health, but he doesn't appear to be doing so. He said he's not going to do so before his term is up in 2026. So that means that Trump will have to battle against a Mitch McConnell, if his health is still intact, if he doesn't resign, who I think can't stand Trump. And he wants his legacy of judges. He'll work on that. But everything else, I think he'll fight to thwart Trump. Right? I frankly think that's what Trump has to look forward to going in office. So I think it's a smart tactic to start, hey, Senate, because we need more strong senators in the Senate. We simply don't have enough. So I do think that's a smart tactic. I don't know that it's a smart tactic at this point to go impeachment. As much as I want it, I like the impeachment inquiry. The more that I think about it, it's the slow drip, drip, drip of Joe Biden. We may be screwed if they remove Joe Biden and put somebody else in. But I think Joe Biden is so despicable. I think he needs to leave the scene, whether it's through resignation or whether it's through impeachment. But I think through an impeachment inquiry, we can beat him up so bad that we have a better shot of winning in 2024. And I think Trump can win in 2024. I think it's an uphill battle for any Republican, quite frankly, but I do believe that Trump can win in 2024, especially if the polls continue to crater for Biden. Let me make sure that I'm not missing anything. This trucking company, U.S. economy, yellow shuts down, putting 30,000 people out of work. Ford set to lose $4.5 billion on EVs this year. Good. I'm so tired of the fraud that is EVs, that are EVs. If you want one because they go faster and all this kind of stuff, but they're an absolute joke. Just please don't believe you're doing anything to make the planet safer. You're absolutely not, and it's arrogant to think so. All right, so let me go ahead and move on because I still want to get to this story with Devon Archer. Before I do want to play a couple of videos for you. This is Peter Doocy. Confronting Joe Biden on his granddaughter, finally admitting that he has a seventh granddaughter, and only due to political pressure, which makes him a very despicable human being. But I want you to hear his reaction. This is the Lunchbox Joe. Remember, people used to talk about Lunchbox Joe, and they ran on this grandfatherly figure in 2020 that Joe Biden was. That stuff was never true. And honestly, I'm going to pat myself on the back. Did you hear that, Pat? I want to make sure you guys hear that, Pat, for those of you that are tuning in, because I've been saying for literally a decade that this guy is not the senator that he claims, that he has always voted on the far left of the spectrum, not in the middle, on the far left of the spectrum. And even Republicans, like, they didn't check his record, his voting record or something. But for years, Republicans were talking about Lunchbox Joe and just buying into the narrative. It just proves to you there's a lot of people, even in this industry, that don't put in the work to do just some basic research. I'm just being completely real with you. All right. But here is Lunchbox Joe, or Joe Biden, and his reaction to Peter Doocy as he asked about his seventh grandchild. Let's roll the game.
I'm wondering if you have a comment on this report and court filing out of Arkansas that your son Hunter just made you a grandfather again.
No, that's a private matter. I have no comment.
Mr. Vice President,
But only you would ask that. You're a good man. You're a good man.
Thank you, guys. This is all
Classy.
the time we have. Mr. Vice
Look, good man, classy. That's a jab. For those of you that might be watching the video, that's a jab. Classy. No, Joe Biden, you're classy. You're classy. You pimping out your son to enrich yourself and your family. You're probably the reason why your son is a crackhead. You're probably the reason why your daughter is a sex addict and is into some stuff herself. As a matter of fact, here's another video that I want to play for you before we get into the Devon Archer stuff. Or Gabe, you let me know when you have it ready. But Ashley Biden's Project Veritas discovered Ashley Biden's diary. They came out with a video proving, so that there's no dispute, that Ashley Biden, this was her stuff that they recovered. And apparently, I believe, a Palm Beach rental home. So Project Veritas dropped this video, I believe, just yesterday. So let's go ahead and roll this. You're going to hear, after the spokesman from Project Veritas speaks about the diary and all that occurred, you're going to actually hear the voice of Ashley Biden speaking to a Project Veritas person about the stuff, that her belongings that were found in this rental property, and she's asking to get it back. The actual voice of Ashley Biden. So let's go ahead and roll the video, por favor, Gabe.
What you're about to hear has never been released to the public. This voicemail was left on the Project Veritas tip line on September 3rd, 2020, which led our journalists to investigate the matter of Ashley Biden's diary, thrusting us into a pivotal moment of history for all of press freedom.
Hi there, I'm calling from Florida. My family, their friend who owns a house down here in Palm Beach, was renting it out. I don't know how, but this is a while back. But anyway, a new renter moved in, and Ashley Biden was staying in this room, and they found her diary, all of her clothes, luggage, pills. Anyway, diary is pretty crazy. I think it's worth taking a look at. It's not a joke. It's real. And I'd love to get it into your hands.
After years of public speculation and internal deliberation, we are finally releasing our conversation with Ashley Biden about her diary and other possessions. They were abandoned and later offered to Project Veritas.
Hi, is this Ashley Biden?
This is she. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I just wanted, so I heard you have a few of my belongings. And so I was going to ask if you could please meet my friend, Eric, who is down in Del Rey. If you could meet him and get this up to him.
There's a diary here. It starts in January. It says, January at the end of a New York month, I'm sitting on a bed at the I building.
Yeah, so if you could just give everything that you have to Eric, that would be really great.
I don't want to give this to the wrong person. I mean, I want to make sure
at this point, and I don't mean to. I don't want to have to get Secret Service involved in this, right? Because it's a whole process.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I am Ashley Biden. It is my stuff. So if you could just give all of that over, I would really appreciate it. I know you sent a picture to my husband with a camera and a few other things that are mine as well. So that would be really great. Where is a good place for him to meet you?
There's also this bag with luggage tags on it. And so is that bag, because there's all this stuff, is that bag yours too, Ashley?
Yes, it is.
Shortly after the phone call, this October 16th letter was sent from Project Veritas to Joe Biden's presidential campaign, asking the candidate for comment. October 23rd, a follow-up email from our then chief legal officer. And on October 29th, 2020, Ashley Biden's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, finally responded saying, quote, "This is insane. We should send to the SDNY." This is the FBI splash page showing the SDNY immediately open an investigation into Project Veritas on the very same day. And on November 8th, 2020, Project Veritas returns all Ashley Biden's abandoned items, including her diary, to Florida local law enforcement. You're watching pre-dawn raids by the FBI on 3 Project Veritas journalists. They took place on November 4th and November 6th of 2021.
I'm sorry, so what is this regarding?
This is the search warrant. Open up.
Gabe, let's pause the video here just for the sake of copyright infringement. We just can't go too long on videos. I'm not sure how much longer is left in the video. Oh, quite some time. Okay, so I probably should have stopped it. We won't go any further on this, actually. If you want to see the rest of this, I will tweet it out. As a matter of fact, I have tweeted it out. You can check it out on my social media page on Twitter. At Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. So this video is there. I have retweeted it. So you can check it out in its entirety there. But I just wanted to give you some of the background of that, because what we've seen with Joe Biden, he's disgraceful at every level, on a personal level, as a dad, as a grandfather, as a guy that is, pimping out his son, that is actually FARA. I forget what the acronym stands for at this point, but that's guilty of FARA. I mean, literally, the guy's just corrupt. The guy is just all corrupt. So he's corrupt on all levels. He's a bad dad. He's a bad grandfather, obviously. He's a horrible president, horrible in all of these things. So I just wanted to give you a little insight into that. And now Ashley Biden herself seems to confirm with Project Veritas that everything that they found, including that diary, is hers. Now, within that diary, some of you may have heard that she admitted to showering with her father at an elder, at an age where she was beginning to be sexually aroused and getting aroused, seeing her father naked. Disgusting. I'm sorry. At some point, I'm not sorry. That's disgusting. Joe Biden showering with his daughter well beyond an age, I believe a pubescent level, where she was already getting sexually aroused and he's showering with her. That's sickening. That is just sickening. All right, now let's get on to the corrupt Joe Biden. This Devon Archer story. We'll close it out with this. Some of the testimony that the bombshell testimony that occurred yesterday in the House Oversight Committee, of course, it was a closed door setting, but some of the stuff has come out, has leaked out. New York Post reported some of it. This is an article from the New York Post entitled "My Guy." Quote unquote, Hunter Biden partner Devon Archer says Joe Biden was on calls with foreign patrons for the brand, quote unquote, the brand, quote unquote. So former Hunter Biden business partner Devon Archer told Congress yesterday that Monday, that Hunter referred to President Biden as my guy, quote unquote, while connecting his dad to foreign associates nearly 24 times. This is what Devon Archer played a part of or testified to yesterday. Archer said this yesterday during his 4-hour House Oversight Committee interview that the Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings also paid Hunter up to $1 million per year to serve on its board because of his family's quote unquote brand. Now, I believe some of the stuff I mentioned yesterday, I can't recall on the podcast, but now that was leading up to, but now this is actual testimony. Archer said that he met with VP Biden in 2014, in April of 2014, and within days of joining Burisma's board alongside Hunter, he told lawmakers that, quote, Burisma would have gone out of business if the brand, that would be Joe Biden, had not been attached to it. So think about this. A foreign energy company in Ukraine, according to Devon Archer, would have gone under if Joe Biden had not connected himself to it, had he not been attached to it. How much money, resources were flowing their way? Remember, it was Barack Obama that appointed Joe Biden as the point man for Ukraine. Joe Biden saw that as license to be corrupt as all get out and enrich himself. This, according to Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, he says, and I quote, Archer talked about the big guy and how Hunter Biden always said, we need to talk to my guy. So you have two terms, the big guy. Remember, Tony Bobulinski mentioned that name, the big guy. Joe Biden was referred to, but you have Hunter Biden referring to Joe Biden as my guy. Absolutely fascinating. According to Devon Archer, Burisma owner Zlochevsky, again, who allegedly told an FBI informant in 2016 that in 2016, this information has been sitting around since then. He was coerced to pay the $10 million in bribes to Hunter and Joe, and he put intense pressure on Hunter in late 2015 to enlist the U.S. support for ousting Ukrainian prosecutor General Shokin. And remember, we showed you that video the other day when Joe Biden basically said he was going to withhold $1 billion in federal aid to Ukraine if the Ukrainian government didn't fire the prosecutor, Victor Shokin, who he claimed was corrupt. Victor Shokin was not corrupt. Victor Shokin was looking into the corruption with Burisma and Hunter Biden. And all of that stuff would have traced back to Joe Biden. So he fired him. That was the quid pro quo. Either get rid of this guy that's looking into Burisma and my corrupt son who's connected to me, or you don't get foreign aid from the United States of $1 billion. Wow. At one point, Hunter Biden, Zlochevsky, and Burisma executive Vadim Pozharsky stepped away and called D.C. According to Archer, this raises concerns, according to the Oversight Committee. This raises concerns that Hunter Biden was in violation. There it is, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is FARA. Archer also said that Hunter Biden put his father, Joe Biden, on speakerphone more than 20 times during business meetings to, again, promote the brand. And people are sitting here trying to defend this. Democrats are. I'll go into that shortly here. Joe Biden was on speakerphone during a Paris dinner, according to Archer, with representatives from a French energy company. What is it about these foreign countries and these energy companies that the Bidens are so attracted to? I always want to talk to these people. Archer said while his son was in China, Archer also said that while his son, Hunter Biden, was in China with Jonathan Lee of BHR Partners, that is a state-backed investment fund that was co-founded by Hunter in 2013, after he introduced his father to Lee during an official trip to Beijing. I'm sorry, I just read that wrong. Joe Biden was on speakerphone during a Paris dinner with reps from a French energy company, Archer said, and while his son was in China, so he was on the speakerphone twice with a representative from a French energy company, and also while Hunter Biden was in China with Jonathan Lee of BHR Partners. So those were 2 times that he was able to say, yes, listen, I heard him on speakerphone speaking to these people. It was not immediately clear whether Archer shared significant details about or addressed other lingering points of intrigue, such as the extent of the business relationship between Hunter and Baturina, or the ties between the first son and another Russian billionaire, former arms contractor Vladimir. I cannot pronounce this last name. It starts with a Y. But they're speaking of this lady and the Moscow First Lady, Yelena Baturina. It says Archer further confirmed that VP Biden attended an April 2015 dinner at Washington's Cafe Milano. Spoke to you about that before with Pozarski. Pozarski, the former executive of Burisma, and former Moscow First Lady Yelena Baturina. All right. Archer said, I do not recall more times than whatever. He, responding to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Apparently, there were some specifics that he would not get into. All right. So Archer appeared after the Justice Department and Archer's own lawyer, a guy by the name of Matthew Schwartz, attempted to dismiss the speculation that federal prosecutors had tried to intimidate Archer ahead of his planned testimony with a Saturday request that a judge begin the process to imprison Archer on an unrelated fraud conviction. So this was not speculation, but I'll tell you why the Democrat or the defense attorney for Archer kind of threw shade on that. Turns out that law firm is connected with the Bidens as well. Hunter Biden worked there at some point in time. So perhaps they just didn't want to get themselves in trouble. They wanted to back away from that a little bit there. But it was true that the DOJ over the weekend tried to get Devon Archer to report to prison before he could give this testimony. So Schwartz, that is the attorney for Devon Archer, is a partner at Boies, Schiller, Flexner, a law firm with close ties to Democrats that, again, formerly employed Hunter Biden during his father's vice presidency. It says here, in that capacity, speaking of Hunter's capacity as an attorney working for Boies, Schiller, and Flexner, Hunter worked with Romanian businessman Gabriel Popoviciu, who bank records show paid members of the Biden family $1 million between 2015 and 2017 as he battled a corruption conviction. So it's almost as if the Biden family were finding corrupt individuals in different foreign companies and like, hey, we can help you out. If there's some U.S. aid going there somehow, some way, we can help you out. Just give us a little bit. It looks like that's what they were doing, finding corrupt people in different countries so they can make money off of them. That's what the Biden crime family was doing. Even as then, VP Joe Biden campaigned against corruption in Romania. Man, this is just amazing. One of the Oversight Committee's top Democrats, a guy by the name of Daniel Goldman, this guy is a nut, of New York, he said that Archer, he tried to defend this, Joe Biden talking to Hunter Biden's business partners. And remember, Joe Biden at one point in time said he never spoke to any of Hunter's business partners or had nothing to do, didn't even talk to Hunter Biden about his business partners or his business dealings. Later, to change the story, the White House did and basically said, well, Joe Biden wasn't involved in his business. Wait a minute. I thought you said you never talked to Hunter about business. So the witness stated unequivocally, this is Daniel Goldman, the Democrat, trying to defend all this nonsense. And I'm quoting him. The witness stated unequivocally that there is no evidence in his possession or his knowledge that Joe Biden ever discussed business with Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden ever did anything on behalf of Hunter Biden's business interests or otherwise never changed official policy in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, the only evidence that we have is to the contrary, which is that even though it was perceived by Burisma that they had the prosecutor general Shokin under control, that Joe Biden advocated for his firing, which of course was not coveted or desired by Burisma. Wow. When Burisma, we know, put pressure on Hunter Biden to tell his dad to have the prosecutor fired. This guy is just disgusting. Goldman also contended that Joe Biden's interactions with his son's partners were innocent. He described what the weather was. This is what Goldman is saying, talking about Biden or defending Joe Biden. He described what the weather was. Goldman said of the president's role in foreign business relationships, it's kind of a preposterous premise to think that a father should not say hello to people that the son is at dinner with, and that's literally all the evidence is, quote unquote. Isn't it weird that the people that Joe Biden just happened to be readily available to say hi to and talk about the weather were people that they were getting money from? Yeah. Former FBI official Chris Wecker, who led the Bureau's criminal investigations division from 2004 to 06, said that things didn't look good for Joe Biden, noting the many alleged speaker phone calls. He said, and I quote, this is the former FBI official Chris Wecker. As head of the criminal division, he said, we saw this quite a bit in bribery cases. It's called stream of services, close quote. He said this to Fox News. He said, you'll sell access or something of value and you get something back in return. Again, that's called stream of services, but it's not an express quid pro quo. It's just an understanding. But if you can match up the services within a reasonable period of time with the thing of benefit, in this case, $10 million or whatever it is, then you have bribery. All right. He says they were selling access. All he had to do was they do the big setup. And then, speaking of Hunter Biden and Devon Archer, so they do the big setup. Then they put Joe Biden on the phone, and this just shows that they have access, right, to the big guy. My words, not his. Here he is. He's on the phone. I just told you, we can do things for you, and there he is. So, I mean, that matches up perfectly. Then you match it up with the prosecutor getting fired. The prosecutor is going after Burisma right within that same time frame. Boy, you're really close to a slam dunk, he says, in my opinion. Now, this is what Trump was trying to find out about or delve into when he was on the phone with, Zelensky, after Zelensky won the presidency. So this is what they're going after Trump for, when in fact, they were the ones, the Bidens were the one with the quid pro quo. President Biden was asked about it, and he laughed it off. He laughed off the 10 million bribery allegation involving Burisma. Also, it says here, the Oversight Committee Republicans are investigating whether the Biden family kept overseas bank accounts and communications on Hunter's laptop, referred to Burisma opening a Maltese bank account for him in 2016. So Burisma did that for him, apparently, allegedly. The story behind Baterina's $3.5 million transfer on Valentine's Day 2014 to a Hunter Biden-linked firm also has remained murky since it emerged in a 2020 report from GOP-led Senate committees. Biden allies have pointed the finger at Archer, claiming he used a once-shared corporate entity for his own dealings. Right, because Devon Archer had a lot of pull without having the brand name of a Biden. Documents from Hunter's abandoned laptop show he was involved in work with Baterina as well as Yevtushenkov, neither of whom have been sanctioned by the Biden administration. Those are the Russians, which has sought to financially squeeze Russia's elite to end the war in Ukraine. Laptop records indicate that Hunter met with Yevtushenkov, who until recently controlled large Russian military contractors and Russia's largest cell phone provider, MTS. in 2012 and 2013, first in New York, then in D.C., as he searched for property investments. Weird. An associate of Yevtushenkov told the Post this year, quote, "I asked Mr. Y, why are you doing this on the front end before I understood that they were going to buy some real estate. He made it very clear to me that, you know, I think it would be good to have a good relationship with this guy. Maybe he can do a favor for us and we can do a favor for him." The source said it was a complete quid pro quo that he was going in for. Man, at the time, Yevtushenkov's cell phone firm faced a U.S. investigation for nearly $1 billion in bribes paid to Uzbekistani officials between 2004 and 2012. MTS was listed on the New York Stock Exchange before trading in its shares. Trading in its shares was suspended last year and ultimately settled the case with the Trump Justice Department in 2019 with an $850 million fine. So the Biden administration, the Biden corruption, the Biden crime family were looking for people that were in trouble with the United States so that they could leverage those people. They will basically get them off and get money from them. I mean, it goes on. There's more to this, but I'm going to stop here for the sake of time. Guys, oh man, you almost need to take a nap after this. I have seriously done a work. Oh, speaking of taking a nap, MyPillow.com right now, the MyPillow is only $19.98, marked down from $69.98. All you have to do is go to MyPillow.com, click on that radio listener square, actually radio podcast square, and enter my name Carl to get that deep discount. $19.98 for a queen size MyPillow. You want a king size, it's only $29.98, marked down from $69.98. All right, 10-year warranty, 60-day money back guarantee, good night's rest, American jobs, American made products. So let's support MyPillow.com. Also, if you go to MyPillow.com right now, they got deep discounts on so many products, it's not even funny. So if there's anything that you've wanted from MyPillow, but you're like, maybe if a sale comes along, well, it's here. Deep discounts, my slippers, mattress toppers, dog beds, you name it, MyPillow.com, radio podcast square, enter my name, Carl, or give them a call, 800-858-0263, 800-858-0263. Guys, I think what we've shown you is Joe Biden is a despicable human being. He's a despicable dad. He's a despicable president. He's corrupt as all get out, pimping out his own kid to make money on leveraging other nations, leveraging other corrupt nations and their leaders. Absolutely despicable human being. Devon Archer, in my opinion, this testimony vindicates Donald Trump, the whole Ukrainian collusion or impeachment hoax. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Find me on all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. And until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.